As the sun dipped beneath a shroud of clouds, twilight descended upon the remnants of the Vernet Internment Camp. The air hung heavy with the memories of lives once vibrant, now silenced by time's relentless march. Rusted barbed wire, once a sharp deterrent, stood forlornly against the soft hues of dusk, draped in whispers carried by the wind. Shadows stretched and danced across the cracked concrete pathways, weaving together stories long forgotten, yet lingering like ghosts upon the land, a palpable reminder of despair and resilience, hope and futility. Welcome to Ghost Stories of the Battles, a space where the echoes of the past haunt the present, reminding us that history is never truly buried. As we embark on this journey, we invite you to unravel the threads of sorrow and heroism woven throughout the fabric of Vernet, a place that once harbored the aspirations and fears of those seeking refuge from a turbulent world. Established in the early 1940s in the heart of southern France, Vernet served as an internment camp for refugees fleeing the horrors of the Spanish Civil War, as well as for those who opposed the rise of fascism across Europe. This site, meant briefly for shelter and safety, soon transformed into a prison of despair, its barbed wires enclosing not just the bodies of its inhabitants, but also their dreams and hopes. Within the confines of its wooden barracks and crumbling walls, men, women, and children found themselves isolated, forgotten by a world that turned its back on them, caught in an interminable limbo. An ashen silence enveloped the camp, punctuated only by the occasional cries of sorrow or laughter overshadowed by an underlying fear of the unknown. As twilight settled deeper, the atmosphere morphed, thickening with an uncanny chill that hinted at the sorrows of those who once walked the paths below their feet. The haunting reminder that every shadow might hold the essence of a life interrupted lingered in the air, challenging observers to consider the legacies left behind. In this setting, the invisible chains of memory clasped solidly onto those who dared to acknowledge the past, where each stone and crevice was tales of loss and longing. Now, we invite you to immerse yourself in the first of our narratives, as the chilling echoes of history come alive through the eyes of Manuel, a Spanish refugee. Together, we will unravel his story, feeling the weight of his memories and fears, and experiencing the profound connections that tie him, and countless others, to the haunting legacy of Vernet Internment Camp. Engage with the spectral procession of fellow prisoners, their stories intertwining with the present, as Manuel navigates a world where hope seems an endeavor as ghostly as the shadows dancing in the twilight. Join us as we step into the past through the winding corridors of memory and despair, where every ghost carries the heavy burden of their untold story, waiting to be heard. Story 1. The Parade of Shadows. The twilight sky draped itself in shades of indigo and violet, the last remnants of sunlight retreating behind the Pyrenees, as I stood amidst the forlorn remnants of the Vernet Internment Camp. I am Manuel, a refugee displaced by the brutal tides of the Spanish Civil War, a mere shadow among the wooden barracks and barbed wire that mock my longing for freedom. Each day in this desolate place feels like an eternity, where the air thickens with despair, and the only company I keep are the fading memories of my family back home. My mother's lullabies echoing through my mind, my father's resilient smile captured in the flickering light of memory. Every evening, the whispers of the wind tell me tales of those who came before me, of lost dreams and shattered lives woven into the fabric of this place. Hope is a fragile thread, and yet, I cling to it fiercely, despite the heavy chains of my reality. In the depths of my fear lies a haunting loneliness that wraps itself around me, a constant reminder of what I have lost and what I might never reclaim. Tonight, there is an unsettling chill in the air, a hint of something otherworldly stirring in the shadows. Darkness creeps in, and as I sit in my dimly lit barrack, I feel an unnerving energy pulse around me. It is as if the very ground I sit upon could give voice to the souls trapped within these camp walls. And the phantom memories begin to swell. Are they watching? Are they waiting for the perfect moment to rise from the ashes of their despair, as I so often wish to? There is more than mere separation by time between us. There is a bond forged in suffering and resilience. As I close my eyes, I can almost hear their murmurs, faint echoes of lives once vibrant and alive. And as the night falls deeper, I am not prepared for what comes next, a ghostly procession that will shatter my already fragile understanding of reality. Days in Vernet shuffle by, each one indistinguishable from the last, marked only by the monotonous rattle of the war-torn world outside. The wooden barracks stand like sentinels of sorrow under the oppressive sky, while the old brick walls seem to harbor the stories of everyone who has ever suffered within their embrace. Barbed wire encircles the camp like a noose, a constant reminder of our captivity, and the meager rations are a ghostly reminder of everything I am forced to endure. Yet amid the mundane, acts of defiance play out. A child's ladder rings out as they chase one another, their joy a dazzling ray of hope against the encroaching gloom. Some of us gather to share stories, clinging to our cultures and languages like life rafts in a turbulent sea. Each narrative woven is a thread connecting us to our pasts, a resistance against the isolation embedded in our souls. But most times, I find myself staring beyond the confines of our prison, longing for the life that once was. And then there are nights like tonight, when the chill in the air freezes my breath and stirs something ancient within me. It was a night when the wind howled, a wild and restless spirit that seemed to gather strength around the camp. My heart raced as the shadows began to dance within the darkness, stretching and twisting in ways that felt almost sentient. From my place near the barracks, I watched as something unusual took shape, a myriad of figures moving in the ghostly twilight. This was no ordinary sight. They resembled my fellow prisoners. Faces lined with sorrow and despair drifted by me, their eyes hollow yet vibrating with the echoes of lives lived and yearned for. It was recognizable, their shapes illuminated by a pale, translucent glow, a flock of memories marching past, as they had in life, yet now caught in an eternal cycle of twilight. What was happening? I stood frozen, unable to reconcile the fear swelling within me against the visceral pull of longing. I knew these faces. I had shared fleeting glances with them over the years. Each one was a specter of unfulfilled dreams and hopes dashed too soon. The more I watched, the more vivid the memories became, the laughter, the tears, the shared moments of humanity that seemed to flicker as brilliantly as the stars overhead. In that moment, surrounding me was a parade of shadows, a funeral procession for lives unlived, a heartfelt farewell that felt eerily intimate. They floated like ghosts on the currents of sorrow, their stories interwoven with threads of nostalgia, fear, and a haunting sense of loss. I felt their pain wrap around me, as if to shower me in the essence of their experiences, and I could almost hear their whispers, beseeching me to remember them. Remember us, they seemed to say, even as we fade into the night. Nostalgia clashed violently with dread, a cacophonous symphony of humanity wrapped in the fragrance of regret. I moved to reach out, to touch them, to grasp their ephemeral forms, but they slipped through my fingers like morning mist. Time itself felt distorted and fluid, blending the line between the present and the past which I had yearned for. But in the haunting hours that followed, as abruptly as they had arrived, the parade of shadows began to fade into the surrounding darkness. The spectral figures coalesced back into the grasp of the night, their mournful procession retreating towards the labyrinth of barbed wire and bleak memories. With each passing moment, they dissipated, leaving me standing in the strange quietness that echoed my chaotic thoughts and emotions. As dawn cracked the sky open with pale light, I found myself blinkered back to reality. The camp returned to its usual existence, still and lifeless, with not a soul in sight to corroborate my experience. Had what I witnessed really happened? Or had the weight of despair driven me to hallucination? Confusion hugged me tightly, leading me to question the very fabric of my sanity. Fingers trembling, I ran them through my disheveled hair and gazed out towards the horizon. No sign of the phantoms, no footprints marking their transient visit. Just a whisper of memories lingering in the air, tinted with both beauty and sorrow. The shadows from the night before bore the marked weight of history, cradling stories lost in time. The reality of my existence crashed upon me like the waves against the distant shore where the freedom I chased lay long forsaken. There was an urgency to remember, to honor those who stood before me in that ethereal parade, each soul a reminder of the intricate tapestry weaved within these camp walls. But what hope did I have? I was but one among many, a vessel of voices the world had forgotten. Nevertheless, from the depths of panic came a seed of resilience, an ember that refused to die. Even as the day broke, illuminating the scars of Vernet, I held the question close. Would I dare to breathe life into the memories fading like shadows in the twilight? Struggling to process what I had witnessed, I felt the world around me begin to pulse anew. Dark memories folding in with snippets of time I had hoped were mere vestiges. Sanity and clarity danced with bewilderment as thoughts circled endlessly. Am I becoming one of them? A pawn in this realm torn between hope and despair. In that instant, my heart brimmed with sorrow, and all I could do was wish for the strength to endure. Each brick that made up the camp was infused with the lives it had housed. I wanted to shout their names, to rebel against the silence those ghosts endured. They were more than mere memories. They were threads in a greater saga of survival, begging to be remembered. Though their carnival of shadows left no physical trace, the experience lodged deep in my heart, leaving me forever altered. As the sun rose and the camp gradually awoke around me, I knew I could not remain a specter among the living. I would embrace the depth of my connection to those who walked beside me in their final moments, the embers of their existence lighting a path through the darkest reaches of my mind. The parade of shadows would become my purpose, echoing their collective sighs and sorrows, pleading for remembrance. I would carry their tales both haunting and inspiring into the unforgiving world beyond the borders of Vernet. In my heart, I understood that history could never fade. It demanded to be spoken, to be felt, as long as there were those brave enough to recall a legacy entwined in the very shadows that danced beyond our sight. In my arms, I would cradle their stories, and together, we would honor the bonds formed in silence, breath to breath, heartbeat by heartbeat. Story 2. Echoes of time. The rain had finally stopped, but a dull, gray sky still hung over Vernet as Claire stepped onto the deserted grounds. The chill of October clung to her, as did a peculiar sense of anticipation. She had come from Paris, fueled by her insatiable curiosity about the past. An avid historian drawn to the stories that shaped the world. As she walked amidst the remnants of the Vernet Internment Camp, she felt like a ghost herself, wandering through the whispers of despair that aged the very air around her. After researching the camp's history for months, Claire envisioned herself unearthing emotional artifacts, tattered letters, hidden diaries, the echo of laughter mixed with tears. It wasn't merely a quest for knowledge, but an exploration of resilience, of suffering transformed into strength. Yet, as she glanced at the rotting wooden barracks, their windows long shattered, a sense of loneliness enveloped her. The stories she sought felt fleeting, like wisps of smoke eluding her grasp, but she was determined. In the heart of this quiet abandonment, she wanted to listen to the echoes of those who once called this place home. With her notebook clutched to her chest, Claire made her way toward the central courtyard where the camp prisoners had gathered in their sorrowful existence. Tendrils of nostalgia twisted through the air, hauntingly strong. She could almost hear the murmur of voices rising from the ground. Some were full of laughter, others stark with sorrow, all intermingling in a symphony of lost dreams. "I am here to honor you," she whispered to the air, though she knew not if anyone was left to hear. Days turned into weeks as Claire immersed herself in the history of Vernet. The camp, a vast network of memories, had once teemed with life. Those who had been interned here were young and old, terrified asylum seekers fleeing the Spanish Civil War, each carrying their dreams and despair in tattered suitcases. Some had arrived seeking safety, others political freedom, yet they all shared a common thread of loss of home, of family, of hope. Claire began interviewing the locals and historians who lived nearby. They spoke of the camp with a strange mix of reverence and sadness, like distant relatives who spoke of a lost family member. "We can't forget them," one elderly man, Monsieur Dupuis, said, tears brimming in his weathered eyes. They were not just numbers, they were lives. His voice trembled, revealing glimpses of the haunting memories, still lodged in the heart of the town. As Claire prowled through archives, dusty documents and faded photographs leaped from their confines, revealing the faces of those who suffered within the wire fences. Her ambition to codify their stories transformed into a series of labyrinthine connections. Each page she turned felt alive with emotion, the hand of a child grasping theirs, the longing look shared between lovers, the defiant fists of those who protested their confinement. In one particularly rainy afternoon, while she sat in an archive surrounded by piles of papers, a sudden crash startled her. An old stack of documents toppled from a precarious pile, as if propelled by an unseen force, scattering across the floor. Her heart raced as she reached to collect the scattered pieces, only to notice one sheet untouched by the chaos lying pristine atop the pile. With an eerie chill, Claire read the words etched across the page: "Nous sommes ici." "We are here." The message sent chills down her spine, tinged with a blend of horror and hope. Who had left these words to be found? Was it a supernatural occurrence or just a coincidence? Perhaps it marked the existence of those long gone, their voices imprinting upon time. In these words, she felt a weight, an urgent call to amplify their stories, a task that tugged at her heartstrings. Days turned into sleepless nights as Claire continued her research. She recorded interviews and collected testimonies, but as she reviewed the tapes, a disturbance plagued her recordings. Voices that once flowed freely now crackled and distorted, twisting into a chorus that became as unsettling as it was compelling. Each time she pressed play, fragments of conversations morphed into chilling echoes, shouting, crying, and latter turning into soft whispers like a gentle breeze through the shattered barracks. With each playback, Claire's conviction wavered. Was she losing her grip on reality? Or was the collective weight of those who had suffered in the Vernet embedding itself deep within her mind? Was it merely her imagination, or were the spirits making their presence known, urging her onward in her quest to share their truths? The rhythm of her daily life grew increasingly chaotic, cradled between past and present. She found herself wandering the camp's grounds, tracing the paths of those whom history had cast aside. Claire often spoke to them, her voice echoing in the silence. "What do you wish to tell me? What truth lies within these fading walls?" At nights, sleep eluded her, replaced by visions of the camp's former life. She'd close her eyes and see the faces of the interned in flashes, smiling at the sunset, weeping under the moonlight, caught in a tapestry of joy and suffering. Gradually, Claire came to realize that they were no longer merely subjects of her research. They had become part of her, intertwined with her spirit. It was during one such restless night, sitting alone in her modest lodgings, that her tape player crackled in the dark. Struggling with her own fear, she hovered close, her pulse racing. As she pressed play, it began low and sorrowful. The ghostly voices intertwined, stitching together a story of love, loss, and survival. The recordings morphed into a haunting chorus, echoing their experiences while swathing her heart in a blanket of grief. "Nous sommes ici, we are here," they sighed. But this time with urgency, a reminder that their stories demanded to be told. Claire felt more than a witness, she felt them guiding her. The weight of their history, now deeply buried in her bones. Days later, standing amidst the remnants of Vernet, amid crumbled bricks and dilapidated wooden structures. Claire finally understood. The ghosts she had sought were not an abstract notion. They were the real legacies of those who had inhabited the internment camp. Every word inscribed upon the fading walls, every forgotten photograph, every distorted echo in her recordings connected her to them, tying her to their untold histories. They were here, forever tethered to the place where their lives halted for a moment, yet their spirits soared unbound in the memories shared. As Claire jotted down her final notes, she realized that her journey wasn't about uncovering forgotten stories. It had become a deeply personal pilgrimage, recognizing that the battles fought in silence still resonated, intertwining their past with her present. In honoring their memories, she galvanized a spirit of resilience that somehow echoed through the ages, the persistence of survival, the power of remembering. Having woven herself into the fabric of Vernet's history, Claire closed her notebook, an overwhelming sense of connection coursing through her veins. With a soft smile, she whispered into the breeze a promise to tell their stories, to let the world know that they still existed in fragments, waiting patiently to be remembered. And as she departed from the grounds, the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson. Yet, new spirits loomed, drawn to the echoes of Vernet. They were like her, seekers of truth, adventurers in the heart of history, ignorant of the haunting tales that awaited their discovery. Scenes shifted to a curious young Frenchman named Julien, camping on the very grounds where so many voices lingered. Story 3, Night of Illusions. Julien stood at the entrance of the Vernet Internment Camp, his heart a curious drum, caught between excitement and an undercurrent of dread. The old wooden barracks, reminders of lives appended, loomed like solemn sentinels under the moon's watchful gaze. He had come to honor the spirits he had read about in history books, to immerse himself in the atmosphere of memories that hung heavy in the twilight air. With his backpack slung over one shoulder and a sturdy tent in the other, he felt like an explorer charting unknown territory, though the landscapes were littered with the remnants of anguish, rather than uncharted islands. The cool evening breeze rustled through the long grass, stirring unease deep within him. As he set up his tent, the historical tales of the camp washed over him like shadows. The stories of deportation, isolation, and despair flooded his mind, evoking the faces of those once imprisoned here. Each nail he hammered into the earth reverberated with the collective sighs of the past, and every rustle of the wind seemed an echo of desperate murmurs. "Are you ready for the night?" he murmured to himself, trying to shake off the chill creeping into his bones from both the evening air and the somber history surrounding him. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a canvas painted in deep indigo and scattered stars. Julien felt the weight of those who had walked before him, their spirits punctuating the air, filling the quiet with an insistent thrum. He nestled into his tent, bringing out a book of local legends, tales of bravery, heartbreak, and whispers from the past. As he began to read, Julien felt a peculiar heaviness in the air, as if the boundaries between reality and memory began to blur, the tapestry of time intertwining his present with long, buried histories. As darkness enveloped the camp, the remnants became both familiar and alien. Shadows deepened, creating a landscape fraught with secrets. The night was filled with distant echoes, the haunting remnants of an era he could only know through stories. He turned off the flashlight, letting his eyes adjust to the moonlight filtering through the branches. The persistent chill wrapped around him, yet he felt a strange warmth emerging from the ground beneath, a pulsing connection ignited by his longing for understanding. Somewhere, deep within the earth, the stories of his ancestors and the ghosts of the camp pooled together. Julien remembered the tale of a prisoner named Rosa, a spirited young woman who had clung to her dreams amidst the despair of confinement. Imagining her face brought her memory alive in his mind, warming him even in the dimmest night. It was then he felt a sudden surge of energy creeping up through his fingers as he reached out to touch an old stone wall. The moment he made contact, the air shifted. A soft glow enveloped him, and he was transported into a vibrant whirlwind of sound and color. Julian was no longer lying in his tent. Instead, he stood amidst a bustling crowd, surrounded by men, women, and children spirits of long ago, fading yet vibrant. The camp was alive, illuminated by the flickering light of torches, latter mingling with cries of despair and hope. The sense of traditional foods wafted through the air, transporting him back to a time when joy existed alongside sorrow. He felt the presence of Rosa, her laughter weaving through the chatter, eyes sparkling as if she were caught in a moment of freedom. "Can you see us?" she called, stretching out her hand toward him. "Do our stories mean anything to you?" Tentatively, Julian reached out, only to find his fingers slipping through her form like smoke. Panic gripped him momentarily, but it was followed by an overwhelming wave of emotion. These were not mere illusions. They were fragments of souls unforgotten, memories resurrected amidst the ruins of their former lives. "Remember," voice boomed, an old man with wary eyes stepping forward. "We live on through those who understand our struggles. Feel our pain, our fight." Julian watched as the parade of shadows continued, drawing him into their world, wrapping him in their history, a tapestry woven from the threads of their experiences, each story a vivid hue against the gray backdrop of sorrow. Men spoke of battles lost, women whispered secrets of resilience, and children laughed with hope lodged in their small hearts. He was swept into the whirlpool of emotions: fear, love, despair. With each spirit he encountered, Julian felt a part of them entangling with his spirit. He could hear the soft whisperings of hope echoing through the corridor of time, the fights for freedom, the yearning for belonging, the bittersweet taste of nostalgia. Interactions led him deeper into their memories, their essence merging with the perpetual echoes that surrounded him. He witnessed regrets of love lost in the chaos, a families torn apart, the dreams of a once hopeful life drifting like wisps of smoke in the inescapable night. Julian turned this way and that, trying to catch every fleeting encounter that flickered before him like fireflies in the twilight. Then came the unmistakable sweetness of music, fading in and out like a heralding wind caressing the past. It beckoned him to dance, to join them in a last celebration of life, a desperate rebellion against silence. Julian spun and twirled, his heart racing, each step fueling the narrative flowing all around him. He laughed, forgotten sorrows washing away under the moonlight, as the memories twined into immediate sensations, delight and melancholy in equal measure. But just as quickly as it had begun, the magic began to fade. Julian felt the pull from the earth beneath him grow weaker, the figures before him shimmering. "Do not forget us, Julian," Rosa's voice echoed, drifting away like the vapor of dreams. The world around him began to dissipate, replaced by encroaching darkness. The swirls of ladder dulled, replaced by silence, a void pressing down on him. "I'll remember," he shouted, desperation lacing his voice. But the shadows merely flickered and faded, leaving only the whisper of the night to answer him. When Julian awakened, dawn's soft light streamed through the fabric of his tent, filtering in like a blessing. He emerged painfully aware of the quiet surrounding him, the still remnants of the camp taking their hold. Sitting cross-legged outside, the morning air was crisp, a soothing balm on his skin. To his left, a stone wall stood resolute, though stripped of its former vibrancy. Yet the whispers of life were still active in his heart. He could still hear Rosa's laughter, feel the echo of pain woven into joy, confronting him with a vital reminder. The past must be honored, not just remembered. His experience transcended a simple night spent in a haunting place. It was a call to action, a promise to acknowledge their stories. As he folded up his tent, Julian felt a connection to those who had walked this path before him. He was no longer merely a visitor. He was now a steward of their memory, a witness to the intertwined fabrics of history. He left Vernet as the sun rose fully on the horizon, illuminating a world forever changed by the echoes of those who came before him. With a heart full of appreciation and resolve, Julian ventured away from Vernet, determined to share the spirit of those who had been there, who had endured, and whose stories had flickered back to life beneath the stars. And as he walked, the voices of the past whispered with the wind, inviting more souls to uncover their histories and, like him, carry the burdens of remembrance forward into the future. As the scene faded, the audience could feel the transition towards the ambitious group of volunteers who had committed themselves to restoring the memories of the camp, their intent as powerful as Julian's newfound purpose. The stories of Vernet echoed on, kept alive through the passions of those who would never forget. Story 4. Whispers on the Wind. The cool wind swept through the remnants of the Vernet Internment Camp, carrying with it a sense of purpose that intertwined with the melancholy history that surrounded the site. On this early fall morning, a diverse group of volunteers gathered under the muted sunlight, their hearts beating in time with the memories that hung in the air like the last leaves, clinging desperately to their branches. Each person came with their own story, their own motivations, but all shared a singular goal: to honor those who had suffered at this place of despair by erecting a memorial stele. Among the volunteers was Anna, a Spanish woman in her late 30s, whose grandmother had been one of the refugees detained in Vernet. And then there were Mark and Juliet, a couple deeply invested in local history, who organized the effort, gathering people from all corners of the region to participate in this act of remembrance. As they approached the spot where the memorial would sit, the tension beneath their camaraderie became palpable, a reminder that hope often walks hand in hand with sorrow. As the volunteers unloaded shovels, cement, and stones, they exchanged stories about what this project meant to them. When I arrived here, Anna began, I felt the weight of my family's silence. We spoke little about my grandmother's experiences, but I want her story to be known. It deserves to be told. Her voice trembled slightly, but it was filled with resolve. Mark nodded in empathy. Many people forget the past, thinking it doesn't affect them. But this is not just about history, it's about humanity. Juliet surveyed the area, taking a moment to breathe in the crisp autumn air mixed with the scent of damp earth. Today, we're affirming that these lives mattered, each one of them, whether they were lost or found. They worked diligently, digging into the earth where the memorial would stand. Each strike of the shovel against the ground reverberated through them, as if they were unlocking a forgotten history buried under layers of soil and time. With every stone placed, a story was unearthed. These volunteers were not simply building a physical structure, they were creating a conduit through which the voices of the past might be heard once more. As the sun reached its zenith, the memorial took shape, looming proudly amidst the skeletal structures of the barracks. It was modest but dignified, featuring a simple inscription that read, "In memory of those who suffered, their stories live on." The words seemed to resonate through the silent camp, sending a shiver down Anna's spine. Just as they began to fit the final piece into place, a sudden gust of wind surged across the camp, sending leaves swirling around them like restless souls escaping their earthly bonds. At that moment, a haunting whisper seemed to fill the air around them. "Mercy, thank you." Anna halted, almost dropping the final stone she clutched tightly, her heart racing. She looked at Mark, who wore a puzzled expression, and then at Juliet, who stood motionless, rendered speechless. "Did you hear that?" Anna managed to stammer, the uncanny chill making her limbs tremble. "Yeah," Mark replied slowly, swallowing hard. "It sounded like they were thanking us." A ripple of unease coursed through the group, yet also a strange warmth, as if honored by a presence unseen. Anna stepped closer to the emerging memorial, feeling a connection ripple through her. The whispers seemed to echo in her mind, stirring memories of her grandmother's few words about her own experiences, a life faced with uncertainty and grief. "We should cultivate this space," Juliet suggested, breaking the silence that hung heavy around them. "It isn't just a monument. It should be a sanctuary where stories can be shared, where people can come to remember." The group exchanged nods of understanding, threading their fingers together in a pact. A silent promise that the memorial would not only honor the past, but serve as a living testament to the resiliency of those who endured the camp's shadows. With renewed purpose, they dedicated their efforts to beautifying the area surrounding the memorial, planting flowers and placing stones with engraved names, allowing sunlight to filter down among them, creating a haven of remembrance. As they worked, there were giggles punctuated by solemn moments of reflection. Laughter mingled with whispers as stories of the past intertwined with moments of hope for the future. When the sun began to sink low in the sky, casting golden rays across the landscape, the group stepped back to admire their work, an island of hope, resting amidst a sea of quiet despair. As the last light of day faded, Anna felt an overwhelming sense of closure. A sense of belonging washed over her, as though she had finally connected the strands of her family history with the fabric of shared human experience. The whispers of gratitude echoed through her heart, as filling her with an unshakable resolve to ensure that the memories held by so many would never be forgotten. Looking at her fellow volunteers, Anna understood that they, too, were bound together by invisible ties, united in purpose. Their whispered stories and laughter honored the laughter of those who had been lost, offering solace and companionship to the spirits that lingered in the twilight. As the first stars began to pierce the indigo sky overhead, the group gathered together, hand in hand, encircling the newly erected memorial. At that moment, a warm breeze swept through the camp once more, enveloping them in a gentle embrace, filling them with the sense that the voices of the past were not only to be honored, they were alive and intertwined with their lives. They closed their eyes, feeling the warmth of the evening and the whispers of gratitude woven into the wind through time. In this moment of unity and shared purpose, they had transcended the barrier between past and present, acknowledging that the stories they had uncovered were not merely histories long buried, but vibrant threads of human experience, existing in both memory and spirit. It was a profound reminder that the essence of humanity thrives in remembrance, binding together those who came before with those who continue to live, reminding them of the importance of history both in sorrow and in hope. As we draw this haunting journey to a close, the stories told here at the Vernet Internment Camp echo in the twilight shadows, intertwining the past and present through their deeply resonant narratives. The spirits of Manuel, Claire, Julian, and the volunteers stand as vivid reminders of the lives once lived within these barren confines. Each of them, in their own way, has drawn from the well of collective memory echoes of lost dreams, forgotten hopes, and the perpetual yearning for liberty. Manuel's chilling experience in the Parade of Shadows reveals a soul trapped between the longing for home and the weight of loss in a foreign land. His vision of the ghostly parade stands not just as an apparition of his fellow prisoners, but as a representation of the universal struggle against confinement, both physical and emotional. This connection highlights how the echoes of history persist, shaping the identities of those who seek freedom in both body and spirit. Claire's exploration, titled Echoes of Time, serves as a bridge to the present, allowing us to reflect on the significance of storytelling. Her research illustrates how archives of human pain can be woven into narratives of resilience. The words Nas Sommes ici remind us that history is not merely something to be studied and shelved, it breathes, and it is alive within the fabric of our communities. Claire's journey emphasizes that the legacy of those who suffered at Le Vernet lives on, urging us to maintain that link with the past and to share those stories, each account a thread in the tapestry of our collective consciousness. In Night of Illusions, Julian's camping experience encaps the very essence of haunting, a physical and metaphysical confrontation with history. As he interacts with the phantoms of Vernet, he is transformed by their struggles, learning that history is not a relic to be observed, but a living testament of human emotion. His awakening at dawn symbolizes the crucial awakening we all must undergo, to embrace our past, face its emotions, and carry those lessons into our futures. Lastly, the volunteer's poignant endeavor in Whispers on the Wind embodies the act of remembering a necessary function that enriches the human experience. The wind that swirled around them, carrying whispers of gratitude, serves as a powerful reminder of the weight of history and the obligation we have to honor it. In their shared labor of love, they symbolize a new generation that acknowledges the suffering of others, holds space for their memories, and seeks to create a peaceful future. As the stories resonate in the solemn air of Vernet, they hint at a broader truth: that the ghosts of the internment camp live on, not just in the past, but in the hearts of those who choose to remember. Every whisper of history urges us to look beyond ourselves, to explore our own local histories, and to understand the power our stories hold. Let these tales inspire you to delve into the past, engage with the narratives that shape your own community, and share those stories with others. As you carry the lessons learned from Vernet, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more haunting tale stories that bridge the divide between history and your own understanding, connecting us to the echoes that whisper gently through time. The spirits are there, waiting to guide us, if only we dare to listen.